Hi everyone, this is Penguin Trades. We're looking at the ES futures on a 500 tick chart. We're also looking at the NQ futures on a 700 tick chart. And starting off here, as you can see, I am trying to enter short right now off of this measured move. Price is very bearish at this point. We have this larger measured move that's in play, and price ended up just crushing on through that. We initially got a good reaction to it, but very swiftly price pushed back lower. And as you can see, we just continue lower, so I'm going to be canceling this now. But I was wanting to see a good two-legged retest of this because even though it just met this channel low and also of course the measured move level, we failed to reverse higher, continued lower. So getting short on a good measured move is a valid trade for over here. And anyway, so I'm just going to get into the whole day here. So again, 500 tick chart, we're looking at we have a 21 EMA here. And yeah, so yesterday we have this uptrend. It's a very sharp uptrend, and we got a break. And when an uptrend gets a break, we can expect prices to attempt a new high, and that's what we start getting here. So we break down to here, basically the low of the overnight. We push up, first attempt higher, second attempt higher, clear 2 attempts at a new high, and then right at that measured move, we get a great bearish reaction, and it starts making a second leg down. Now, when an uptrend has a break and it makes a couple attempts higher and then fails and then makes a second significant leg corresponding to the original break leg, what you're getting is a two-legged break. Now, it's really only a two-legged break after it breaches the previous swing from that first leg. And in this case here, it does do that. It does it by a couple points. It's basically also, a double bottom with it, but it does clearly make that new low. So this is a valid two-legged break. Even though it doesn't reach this measured move, it doesn't necessarily have to. As long as it breaches that swing, in this case here, we're holding off of these range lows, which ends up becoming our overnight low as well, which the overnight high up here, these are our overnight lows down here. These are our key levels for the day. And yeah, so it makes that new low here, and then we start making our new high attempt. So initially, after the break of this uptrend, these are our 2 attempts at a new high. But again, once price breaches this swing down here, we have to switch gears. It's now a two-legged break, and we can get a much bigger picture new high attempt. And so we spike up. Price is attempting to make a new high for that uptrend. This is a great spot for a failed second entry. If we can get a decent setup on one, it ends up not really offering anything great here. It just spikes up. We get a break, new high. So this thin uptrend very quickly plays out with a break and a new high. We get a reversal attempt, very quickly fails, and basically what you have here is when price attempts to reverse here and then fails, you have to combine the 2 original legs, which that might look confusing, but this is your first leg up. You have the break, that's your second leg up, and since price failed to reverse down here and continued higher, you combine all of that into one channel, and now that reversal attempt is now just the larger break, and then you have your bigger picture new high attempt right here. So you have your first attempt at a new high up to here, correction, and then second attempt up. So let me draw that out here. Notice how we got this uptrend, break, first attempt higher, and then second attempt higher. And that second attempt higher, it took, went sideways a bit before pushing up here. And sometimes you're going to get that, but it all still works out the same. It's just playing out with a two-legged move, and that's generally how it goes, and we're seeing it again here. So when price pushes up, we can look to get long on the way up if we get a good second entry long off the EMA. Now in this case here, we need to consider that we do have highs here, we do have lows. It's a pretty clear range that we're going into, very choppy around this area. And we just don't really get anything great. It reaches that measured move right around where it reaches this overnight high. We start pushing down from there. Price attempts to reverse. We do get a retest on this channel. So it's off the channel and it's off of the range high, but considering it's right off of the overnight high, that's a major reversal area. It's also right into that measured move. I don't want to enter long directly into that, so I don't like anything there. But it does push up, we break out of the overnight high, and then we get a sharp fade. So, kind of like what I was explaining, how, we combine legs, which I need to stay zoomed in here because it gets so hard to see when I'm zoomed out because it's so choppy at the beginning. Where was I? So, like I was explaining, we combine legs, and so, initially we have this leg, we have a break, This is a push up to a new high. So basically uptrend, break, new high, and then we got this reversal attempt from that play out. And then as soon as price pushes higher here, this reversal lower fails, we got to combine our previous legs. We got to combine these two legs up into one, which is where we get this larger leg. And so now we have this larger uptrend, two-legged break down to here. Then we got our first attempt at a new high, and then our second attempt at a new high. So price action, it works the same on every level. You just got to get good at spotting it, get bigger picture in real time. So just to explain it one more time, now we have this larger uptrend, two-legged break down to the resistance, this range low, and then we get two clear legs up to a new high. This uptrend is now successfully played out, and then it goes right into a reversal. So not only is this uptrend played out, it's also a breakout of the overnight high. It's a very common fade area. And then when we fade, we push right through this wider trend line possibility. And so it ends up not holding. And then this was a measured move trade. I entered short on this measured move based on how strong this reversal was. And it made a double top with this range high up here, getting well below the overnight high, getting through all the resistance, or I should say support. And so I liked this as a measured move trade. It did actually back up, pretty significantly, but that's just a part of trading. It didn't really get that close to the stop. And so we get our second leg down. So this was the first major leg in the fade. So, basically a downtrend, break, and then a new low. That is our two-legged move. And then after our two-legged move is up, we start reversing. We get a two-legged reversal higher. Now, again, when a downtrend plays out, it's very common to get a reversal. So when you get this reversal, but then it can't reverse past that swing and it starts continuing lower, we have to combine these two legs into one. That's where this red leg comes into play. This red leg only really becomes valid after price starts spiking down here, and then we can copy it over to this swing. So now we have these two legs combined into one, so this is now our downtrend, and then these two legs up, which was originally the two-legged reversal, is now just the two-legged break. So downtrend down to here, two-legged break, and then we start our new low attempt right here. So this is a great spot for a failed second entry. I would like to see something just like this, basically, but we don't quite get anything here. It ends up getting pretty choppy. We push below the EMA, and we push right back above. Not great for a short. It doesn't offer a clear two-legged move. We don't get a good two-legged retest of anything. And then it just pushes on down to a new low. So from here, this thin downtrend has already played out with a break in a new low. And so we don't really want to enter short all the way at the low right there. We also don't really have a lot of room for a good two-legged correction. And so you can see it makes a very small two-legged correction, doesn't offer anything great. It's already made that new low. So, it's just not an ideal place to enter short, but we do end up pushing down. We reach this measured move very quickly. We get a spike up, but that fails and then continues and reaches the much larger red measured move. So with measured moves, generally the larger ones win out over the smaller ones. I'm sure that's not surprising. They are bigger picture. And when we have this measured move in play, it's also off of the overnight high, a major reversal area. So we need to consider that we have the range rules in play. When you come off one side of a range, price is expected to attempt to reach the other side, and that's very commonly done in the form of a two-legged move. And so as price pushes lower here, even though we have this measured move, the smaller one that we're looking towards, we can't just expect it to bounce right off of it. We certainly can't take a long right on that measured move because we have a larger one in play. We have the range rules in play, and there's all sorts of reasons to expect a bigger reversal. And so as price pushes lower, what we can look forward to is a two-legged retest underneath this measured move level in order to get a short with this larger one in play. So as price pushes through this measured move level, I want to see a two-legged retest, and then we can get short to continue down to this measured move. It just doesn't quite happen. We only get this one leg attempting to retest, and then it very swiftly pushes on down, makes a new low, reaches this measured move level, and then we get a good reversal attempt. So you can see here, after reaching that measured move, then we get the retest of this level. So that's not the most ideal because after reaching this measured move, we're more likely to get a much stronger reversal. Now, in this case here, it's just way too thin. This these two legs up here, it is a clear two-legged retest of this measured move level, but they're too thin. It's too much of a spike up considering it just met this measured move. Now, if we had got something more like this, and I'm just going to draw this out here. If we had gotten something more like this, like a very clear separation of legs, so uptrend, break, new high, clear two-legged move, this would be much better, because if you get 2 attempts to reverse off of this measured move with a good bearish reaction, then you could just say it's a failure, it's a reversal failure. And it would be valid because those 2 legs would be relative in size to this red measured move that's been met, and so if price has a bearish reaction, then you can look to get in on a failure. However, the 2 legs up are so thin, it's basically just one leg. For all we know, price could make a second leg up right from there. So first leg up, break, and then second leg up. So the point is, these 2 thin legs up right here, it's too small picture based on the size of this right here, so there's no good short here. At least in my opinion, I don't believe this is a good area to get short. I would want to see a much cleaner two-legged retest, and then after it pushes lower here, it's clearly struggling to get below the EMA. It does get below it here, but then it just pushes right back above, and again, that could be the start of that second bigger leg up. So I just don't see a great short here, but it does continue down. We end up pushing right down to that overnight low, and of course also the larger range that's clearly in play, and then we get a very strong reaction to that. So at this point, this downtrend is played out. We have 2 major legs down. Also from here, it is clearly its own trend right here. It has a break, new low. So at this point, basically all the downtrends are played out, and so that leads to a sharper reversal. We get a spike up. And this is a good spot to see a failed second entry. Now, you'd want to make sure that there's no wider trend lines blocking, but after price spikes up, if we get a 2-legged retest above this red measured move level, then we can look to get long, because price attempted to reverse here, but if it has a strong bullish reaction off of our overnight low, off of one of our major key levels for the day, then we can look to resume playing the range rules. And so if price pushes up, gives a couple legs back, has a good hold, we can absolutely look to get long and get in on the second leg up. It just doesn't quite happen here. It ends up making another retest of that overnight low. However, it's very common to see quick double bottoms on retests before reversing. So we have another chance here. Now I have this area circled. One thing I want to mention really quick is I had an internet problem today, and so there was actually quite a bit I wasn't able to trade. And so after not being able to figure out my Wi-Fi, and I just put it on my hotspot, so I was trading on a hotspot a lot of today. And that was also around this area here. And you can see here, this is a failed second entry. It's a smaller failed second entry, but it sets up decently well given the context that we have. So when price pushes up here, we now have we have this double retest of this overnight low. We get above the EMA. Now at first it kind of struggles, we push up, we get a break, it makes this new high. And so this small uptrend, it technically does play out, but then we get a great hold above that above that red measured move level. We have this larger measured move in play, which I drew that wrong. Hold on, sorry. It's meant to be up to here, and then that second leg up to there. So uptrend, break, first attempt higher, and then second attempt higher. Now, yeah, it made a new high at that point, but again, we have the range rules in play now. Meaning the overnight high and the overnight low. We're holding above this major measured move level, and not to mention, since it's a double bottom here, and that's just a common bottoming pattern, we also have this in play here. So there's multiple reasons to get long here. It's not going to be the biggest trade. This looks good for 1-to-1. I would definitely keep the target within that measured move here. But like I said, I was not trading in this area. I had Wi-Fi issues, and so I couldn't take this, but I do like that there. Anyway, price retests this level one last time, and then we get a spike down. And so basically how this ended up working out is from here, you basically have a trend down to here, and then this acts as the two-legged break. So let me just draw this out how it initially was. So we have this downtrend, two-legged break, right at that measured move higher, we get a spike down. And so We have our first attempt at a new low, and then right here is the start of that second attempt at a new low. So downtrend, two-legged break. Again, on that move up, we don't want to push it past this measured move because there's two measured moves here, and it could make a bigger picture new low. And so price pushes lower, we get this first attempt lower, attempts to reverse. We don't get any real good entries in here because it's just so choppy between this measured move level and the overnight low. It just doesn't offer anything great, but that does start the second leg down. So downtrend, break, first attempt lower, second attempt lower, and of course, we have to consider that this is one leg on a bigger picture. So let me just copy that over. You can see here both the measured move from the two legs down to a new low, as well as the bigger picture ones, which I'm going to make them a different color because I know it can be hard to see. Which I'm not going to do crimson. I have too many crimson arrows. So we'll do green. You can see here with this larger measured move in play, we also have this smaller one in play. So on the way down, as we break out of the overnight low, this is a great spot to look to get short. On a retest, if we can push lower, get a couple legs back, retesting the overnight low, that'd be great for a short. It gets too choppy. It barely breaks out here by the time it's retesting it, and it's pushing above, it's getting above the EMA. It's just not ideal for a short. And then we push lower. Now at this point, we have a better chance because we could get two legs up from there. We have a chance to get two larger legs up on a retest. However, after that first leg, that was enough for the bears to come in, and then it just shoots on down to that overnight low. Now, not the overnight low, the measured move. I mix up my terms all the time when I'm talking fast. So it pushes down to the measured move levels, and then we get a more significant reversal. We can look to get in on a failed second entry. To get along, we would just need to make sure that we have room to this trend line, or this range line, I should say, and also this upper trend line. So we can look to get in on this reversal. We're getting a great bullish reaction right at that measured move. We just have to make sure there's room. And in this case here, it very quickly spikes back below the EMA, so we don't get a long entry. But we push lower. We go into this downtrend here. We break this measured move level. Now, when it pushes lower here, it's very clear that the bears are controlling this market. So if we can get two legs up retesting this measured move level, that'd be great for a short. And as you can see, we just don't get that. You can see there's two legs up here, but it's not a clear retest, and it's entering very low. No way is that safe. Price continues lower here, and we overshoot this channel. Overshoots generally lead to very strong reversals, which is exactly what we're getting here. It commonly leads to breaks of the channel. Now, they can recover. You just want to be more careful about shorting the high of a channel after, or in this case of a downtrend, you want to be careful about shorting the high right after a overshoot, because it can lead to a significant break. Therefore that break can lead to a fade because, as it's pushing higher here, this overnight level, it does act as a magnet. Prices are attracted to it, and, sometimes they'll fade on in because fades are very common for ranges. And so, anyway, I'd like to see a couple attempts up here, and then if we get a good bearish reaction, then we can just look to resume the trend. It's very common for prices to, recover. You just want to be cautious of it in case it doesn't. We could end up getting like we have this uptrend here. We could get a break, a couple legs up to it with a good bearish retest. We could get short off of it. It just has to set up well, and we got to make sure that we don't get greedy, and So anyway, that's probably going to do it for the ES here. Let's hop over to the NQ for a sec. So only one trade on the NQ. I recently upped my chart. I was trading on like the 350, the 300 or the 350 for the NQ for a while. But I just upped that to the 700. It's just nice having a larger chart while trading the faster ES chart. And so, this is our overnight high. This is our overnight low. Price spiked out, made these two legs up, retesting it. It didn't quite retest it, but it retested. It was very close to retesting this measured move level. And then we got a great spike down. And so we push lower here. It makes this new low. We can look to get short on the way down. It's kind of making these higher lows, and I don't want to enter that low, but, as price pushes lower here, we could get a couple legs back, and we could definitely get some kind of failed second entry on the way down. It just doesn't happen, so we push lower, and then we make this new low, a couple attempts to reverse, ends up going into this channel here, which I'm going to go through everything here. So we go into this uptrend, very small uptrend, break, new high. So that uptrend played out. We got 2 attempts at a new high, and then price attempts to reverse from that new high, but very quickly fails. And then at that point, it's just clear that we're going into this wider channel because these lows are holding. We have 3 bounces off these highs at that point, and then we get a break. And then as soon as we get a break of this channel, we get 2 attempts at a new high. And then after it makes that new high, we get a strong reversal. So no matter how choppy it looks, price action, it does work the same on every level. So just to explain it again here, this channel's off those highs. It's fitting decently off the lows, but clearly off those highs, we have this uptrend. We get the break, first attempt at a new high, second attempt at a new high, reversal. So as price pushes lower here, this is another opportunity. If it can go into a failed second entry, we can look to get short on it. It just doesn't offer that here. It just pushes lower, makes this double bottom, and continues up. And as soon as it pushes up here, we have to combine all of these legs into one. So if it had pushed lower, then we wouldn't be able to do that. But since price attempted to reverse after this uptrend played out, we have to now combine all of these legs into one, so technically, this would be drawn to there. It doesn't really matter as long as it's at the same level, but for the sake of example, I'll draw it up to there, copy that over. Now you have this 2-legged move higher, and it's just a bigger picture measured move. And so as price pushes up here, after the failure is clear and you're really pushing higher, you can look to get long on the way up on a good failed second entry. However, it very quickly reaches this high, and you don't want to be entering long right after it's testing those highs. It makes a couple legs down here. It's holding above the EMA, but it really could continue lower from there. It could make a second leg down like that. You know what I mean? So it's just not the safest entry. You don't want to enter it right after a retest. It's overall down at that point. It's just not the greatest. And so anyway, in this trade here, this was another one. This was during my internet problems, so I couldn't take this, but or I didn't even see it at the moment. My chart wasn't moving. So price pushes lower here after retesting this the overnight low. So it retests the overnight low, also overshoots, commonly lead to breaks, and also, of course, this measured move being met. There's all sorts of reasons that we get this very sharp bearish reaction. And so after we get such a strong reaction like that, continuing with the overall trend, which just by the way, this trend is drawn off of the lows here in case anyone's wondering. So we can look to continue with that trend here. And this looks like a good measured move trade. Even though it did, it was just off of these lows right here of this uptrend that's forming, we are also in the middle of a reversal lower. And so we have to consider that as well. This looks like a good measured move trade. Just to write it down to the lows right here, you can see there's a little bit of resistance stacking up right here, and so I would want to get out around here. But this looks great to ride down to that. It's right after a very strong retest of this level right here. We're clearly overall in a downtrend. It's the strongest bearish move in a while for this day, and we're getting a retest right on this very clear resistance level right here. And so that's why I like that here. Unfortunately, I couldn't take it, but it does push on lower here. We end up making price reaches down to these lows here, not quite the measured move, but right when it reaches it, we start pushing up. And so basically we got at this point this downtrend, which I kind of forgot to explain some of the earlier stuff into the NQ here. I kind of just jumped forward a bit. But when this downtrend here initially played out with a break and a new low and then failed to reverse higher, once price starts spiking down here, you need to consider that overall this was one leg. These 2 reversal attempts from the smaller trend playing out, the thinner one, is the 2-legged break. So let me just make this easier to see real quick. So this is our downtrend. We have our 2-legged break, and then this is the start of our second leg down. Well, really, it's the start of our first attempt at a new low for this downtrend. So downtrend, 2-legged break, first attempt lower, and then this right here is the entry for that second attempt lower. And after that second attempt lower, like I said, it doesn't reach the measured move, it just reaches the lows. We start spiking up here, and then we get this uptrend, break, new high, and then we get another great bearish retest of this level here. This the way I entered this was actually with a market order. It was the best way to enter this one here. I wanted to get out before these lows right here, because even though it had a break and it's pushing up, it could end up holding on this level here. And to enter, I wasn't entering particularly after any bar. It was more of a context trade. This thin uptrend here has a break, new high, so it's played out. This wider uptrend here has a break, 2 attempts at a new high, and it doesn't make that new high, but I don't care because it's so bearish overall. I drew this trend line and then copied it over, so it was perfectly off the trend line when I was entering, and it was also off of this measured move level. We're getting another test of that, and so that's why I like continuing with the overall trend. I wasn't too concerned with this uptrend, especially because I was getting out before price actually reaches it. And yeah, so that's why I like this trade here. I believe I recorded this one, so it should be in this video. I'm not totally sure. I think I recorded it. But we push on lower here, and we end up making this 2-legged move down. So from here, we get our first leg down, second leg down, right at that measured move. We get this sharp reversal attempt. It's already pushing back down at that, this trend line right here. So what that means is we could push up or push down into a failed second entry pretty soon. Yeah, sometimes these arrows don't copy over perfectly. I don't get it. But anyway, we could get something like this, failed second entry on the way down for a short. Overall, we are in this downtrend. These highs are continuing to hold, which I'm going to adjust this a little bit. Oh, whoops. So I'm going to have it right off that now, and let's just make sure it's as accurate as we can off these lows. So anyway, that's fitting pretty well. I'm actually going to just quickly see if I draw it off the highs, how are we doing? So, at this point, now that there's more tests, you can draw it off the highs a lot easier. I'm probably just going to leave it like this for now. But anyway, yeah, we could get that failed second entry soon. One thing we do need to consider, of course, which is, we do have this right here. So ideally 2 legs up. If we get a push below, that'd be great for the short. Ideally just push down a little further here. So, make sure you draw out your structures so that way you can, you take stuff off of them accurately. But yeah, so if we get these 2 legs up right here retesting, what we'll have is from this uptrend, we'll have a break, first attempt higher, second attempt higher, and then we can get short on the failure. So as long as price doesn't break this swing before making that, then, it would be that, this uptrend play out failure. So anyway, just the one trade on the NQ today. And, like I said, I like this trade here for a short, and let's hop over to the ES real quick. Yeah, so I just wanted to go over today, and so here's the ES again. I didn't get in on that trade here. That was just another trade that I missed. And yeah, so just this one here on the ES, and then the one on the NQ. Today, at first, it felt like, pretty choppy, but it ended up getting a lot better. So anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this review, and thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.